Thanks for joining today till late. Uh, hope you have had an insightful and productive day so far. So to get started, we'll review the Symfony Console, how we can use it on Drupal projects, and how we can write console commands, how we can do the unit tests for the console commands. So I'm Mohit, and I'm a Drupal developer at Previous Next. This is my Drupal and Twitter ID, so you can reach out to me there as well. I'm working as a Drupal developer at Previous Next. We are based in Australia. We deliver content, user experience, Drupal development, Drupal hosting with our clients. We primarily focus on higher education and government Drupal websites. Now, the basic agenda for today, mainly first we will see two components of the Symfony framework, Symfony Console and Symfony Runtime, how we can use it in our Drupal projects. Another thing, we will see a few other concepts related to that, like compiler pass implementation. That is something which will be helpful to us. And after that, we will see how we can write tests. So first and foremost, why console command? Considering we already have Drush, right? And it has been serving us really well. So what's the need of that? We can say that like it provides a basic single entry point for which user can run the command. You might be aware like Symfony has a console inbuilt. Laravel also has similar console application. Also, it is more aligned to the Symfony ecosystem, which we have been adopting since quite some time. Another thing, we have this thing moving away from the island thing that we have been following since quite some time, and following general PHP ecosystem and terminology. So that's also a good use case. Apart from that, in Drupal core, we already have a console application in core/scripts folder. We call it Drupal. So we already have a bunch of console commands over there. So if we have a console command out of box in Drupal core, we can ship multiple console commands from the module itself. So that's the kind of the reason that we have. Let's see a brief output of how the console command looks like. We'll see each option one by one. Like there are lots of various options, various formatter, various helper method available in the console. So we will see those in the next slides. Now let's see how we can add console commands to Drupal projects. One of my colleague Dan Finn, he has created a proposal for adding console commands to Drupal core. You can find it on the first link. So all you need to do is you need to get the page from the issue and apply it, and you'll be get started to run the console commands. Another thing, he has also created a short-lived module called Dex console. So you can, if you don't want to apply page to core, you can simply do composer require module, and it will help you to get started with console commands. One thing we should be clear over here is that we should either use the page from the core or the module. So next, we'll see a few key concepts that are basically helps us to understand how the console command have been scaffolded. So basically, first we need entry point binary file that needs to be consumed by Symfony runtime. Why we need to do that? Basically, when we add a Symfony runtime to our project, its job is to get the application instance from our binary file, and it will run it basically. So first, in our case, we call it a kind of Dex or any other module name, basically any other name that we want to give. In fact, there has been a discussion on Drupal.org issue where what is the appropriate name for the console application, so you can add your inputs over there as well. So first is we need to have a binary entry point file. Next one is we need certain composer JSON changes. So first we need to do like composer require Symfony runtime. Another is we need to ensure that the binary file is available in the appropriate folder, like it can be vendor bin or any other binary folder that is configured for the project, so that that folder is available in path and we can directly execute it. Next one is we need to add a compiler pass. So the job of the compiler pass is to basically iterate through all the commands that we have declared in our modules, register them as a services, and pass those to command loader service. So command loader service is something which works as a registry of all the console commands that we have defined. So that's the kind of key concepts. We will see each one by one. First of all, let's see brief about Symfony Console. As many of you might aware about the component, right? It allows us to build command line applications in PHP. It also provides various output building blocks like we saw in earlier screenshot, right? It has various like title, section, table output. Also we have like various helper, question helper, confirmation helper. So all those things makes it kind of compelling to have a or to write a console command that makes like more interactive. Also it has various input output handling methods, so that makes it easy to write a command. It has various features like colors, progress bar, and all those things. We will see those things. So overall I think that makes easier. Apart from that, another thing, since console command are services itself, we can actually invoke from normal Drupal code. Let's say our editor want to have some functionality where they can submit the form and execute the functionality. So since console command is a service, we can get the service instance and simply run it on the submit handler or anywhere basically where we want to run it. So that's the kind of benefit that we have with the console. Next one is Symfony runtime. So Symfony runtime is also another component or kind of the component in the Symfony ecosystem. So it basically allows us to decouple the bootstrapping logic from the global application state. With that, what happens actually, we can run the application in decoupled mode with PHP runtimes like React PHP, Swole, PHP PM, etc. Now, what's the purpose of Symfony runtime here? Like we saw earlier, right? We need a binary file. So Symfony runtime will get the application from the binary file. It will call or it will find the appropriate runner that is needed to run the application. So in case of console application, it will find the console runner. If our application is simply a closure, it will find a closure runner. It is smart enough to find the appropriate runner. Now let's quickly see the code of autoload_runtime.php provided by Symfony runtime. So over here is we simply require our script. In our case, it is our console application. Next one is we just get the appropriate runtime class. So in our case, it's just an instance of Symfony runtime that we have over here. After that, we get the runtime, we initialize the app and get the appropriate resolver over here. Once we have the instance of an application, we just initialize the application, get the appropriate runner. As I mentioned earlier, right, getting the appropriate runner. So Symfony runtime will identify the appropriate runner and it will run the application. So that's the kind of purpose of having a Symfony runtime over here. Now let's see the brief about like how things have been set up in Dex console module or our Drupal.org PR. That will help us to get the basic understanding of how things have been written, and eventually we'll see how we can write console commands. So first is we need to understand like compiler pass. It basically allows us to manipulate the services in container. Now if we want to add a new compiler pass, we can simply extend the service provider base class, call the register method. Our container has a method called add compiler pass. So here we can pass the instance of our compiler pass, and eventually we'll see like how we'll see about the entire process, how compiler pass, how we like recursively iterate through all the folders and everything. So now let's see the implementation of Dex compiler pass in the process method. So first we need to start with process method over here. We'll iterate, we'll see each step what happens. So next one is we call the get classes method over here. What get classes method does is it iterates through all the PHP files that are declared in command folder, basically in command namespace. We initialize the iterator, get the appropriate class. If any class is implementing as command attribute, because our console command, we will be using as command attribute to declare the commands. So check if there are any commands that are using as command attribute and simply return the class. Now once we have the class, what we are doing over here is we are creating a service definition for each command actually. So we get the class name, ensure that auto wiring and auto configuration is true. So it will take care of dependency injection and set the service definition in the container. We are also adding a tag called console.command. We will get back to that later, like why we need it. Now, next one is we need to take care of certain things over here. Typically, console.command loader service, it allows us to load the command lazily in the lazy manner. So we are doing a bit of processing over here. We are creating a lazy command reference array, which basically, if you see on line 55, reference is it's a kind of object that keeps reference or keeps links to the particular service instance. So here we are creating an array of lazy command references, and later we will pass it to service locator tag pass. So here we are getting the definition console.command loader. That service basically it will work as a command loader service for our console application. So we get the definition, set the argument. So basically service locator tag pass is a kind of utility class that allows us to manipulate the service locators. Basically service locators are kind of small containers that allows us to load the services lazily. So we get the service definition, set the argument. Another thing we are doing over here is we are setting one container parameter called console command IDs, which will hold basically all the service IDs. Why we need to do that, we will see in the next slides. Now let's see the Symfony runtime implementation, what we have for DEX console application. So as we know, right, we don't need to execute the application. We just need to return the instance of an application. So initially we'll start with blank function. Now here we are creating a new instance of Drupal kernel, and we are calling boot environment method, which will set up all sort of consistent PHP environment and initialize all the settings and everything. After that, since Drupal is highly dependent on request object, we will create a new instance of request object and will initialize bunch of things from context. After that, we will push the request to the request tag, and we'll call the pre-handle. Basically, it will do the request related initialization. Next one is on line 29, we are creating new instance of the console application class. We are giving DEX name for now, but you can give any name. After that, we will set the command loader service, which we defined earlier with all the arguments and everything, and iterate through each command, like each command service, and register each service as a command in the our application. So that's pretty much it about the whole scaffolding. Now let's see how we can write console commands over here. So first we need to define as command attribute. We need to give name, description, and it has various other things. Next one is we need to define services if we need anything. By default, as we saw earlier, right, we made it like auto wiring to true. So it automatically takes care of dependency injection. If that doesn't happen automatically, we can use autowire attribute of the Symfony, and it will take care of autowiring the services. Apart from that, we have this configure method, which will. So over here, we are providing a bunch of options to configure the command. Like we can provide like optional arguments, any other options, and that we want to pass over here. Next one is execute method. So as we saw in the output, right, we have like bright cyan background and black font. So we can define output formatter style over here. In our case, it's the highlight. So we can set the highlight style over here in the formatter, and eventually whenever we want to highlight any text, we can simply wrap that in highlight tag. Likewise, for now we are using Symfony style. Now if we want to customize further, we can create our own style decorator and can like override all the styles that we want to override it over here. Next one, I would like to highlight, like we have a couple of helper. That's the question helper. That's the confirmation question helper over here. So what I'm trying to kind of convey over here is like this is flexible in terms of how we want to configure the command. Here we have all sort of the basic the code. Apart from that, we have choice option over here. We can have like we can provide multiple choices over here while running the command. That's the simple progress bar component for the command. And that's the table output. Even over here, we can format the table output the way we want. We can have a custom output style. For example, I have created table header style over here, which you can see over here. I have created a table header style. Likewise, you can, it is really flexible in terms of how we want to use it. So that's the brief about writing commands. Another thing, when we want to run it, we have a dry run option as well. That will basically run the command without mutating the state of the application. So that's the really good thing. Now let's see how we can test the commands actually. Since commands are services itself, we don't have to like take additional measure to test it. Symfony Console component, it provides helper class called command tester class basically. So what all we need to do is we need to get the service instance for the particular console command. Okay, initialize a bit of helper set. Since we have a question helper, I'm initializing it. I'm passing a few inputs over here, and I'm simply executing it with the tester object that we have. And eventually we can assert it. Apart from that, Symfony Console itself has a bunch of tests. If you want to assert like entire table output, we can also do that. So that's pretty much it about like how we can test it and how easy it is to test the console commands. So yeah, and next one. So summary overall, in the 3 sentence we can say that like use the module or the patch to have a console commands, use s command attribute for creating the command, and run the command tester, use the command tester to run the command. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions? Happy to answer. And I have all the links. I will also post it on Twitter, so you can refer those later.
Hello.
Hi.
So at the very beginning, you mentioned how it is different from Drush. Why not Drush? And I couldn't quite follow.
Mm-hmm.
Could you try and explain?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so main intention is not to kind of have something which will replace Drush or anything. It's kind of having another tool in the tool set, so we can use it whenever there is a similar requirement, or if you want to have some, if you want to try out some extensive command with various output styles and output building blocks, we can use console commands. But so it's kind of having a tool with us so that we can use it kind of depending on the requirement. Yeah.
So your requirement in this case was having this extensive customizability for
Correct.
the outputs.
Yeah. Also, apart from customizability, even like console is flexible, so we can even use console to run a single command application. Our application can be a single command itself. So that's also another option. Like even Symfony Console, that it has the flexibility where our application can run as a single command itself.
What could that be, for example? So this is totally Drupal independent.
Yep.
It could be. Does it need to be a PHP application then? What you run?
Yeah.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else? Yeah.
What sort of, you did a very abstract overview of everything.
Yeah.
What sort of tasks can you see this doing? Because I sort of remember we had the sort of Drupal console, which then was going to replace Drush and didn't, and then we used Drush, and this seems to be a useful thing to be more Symfony, which I think is a really good idea to do across the whole Drupal project.
Good.
But have you got an example of, or are we going to port Drush commands to this and gradually replace Drush? I know you just said no, but some examples of how it could be used would be really useful.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got your point. So, like currently we don't have any kind of specific things. All we can do is like, we can build console commands like we do for like we have in Symfony, right? We can write similar console commands. Apart from that, like I really like. In fact, I'm using Drush on day-to-day development workflow, so it isn't kind of the replacement to Drush or alternative to that. But my main intention is to have a kind of a similar tool with like more flexible styling. For example, here we saw the demo of Symfony style, right? Similarly, we can write multiple decorator to the Symfony style, and we can take benefit of it. So that's the kind of main intention. Yeah, apart from that, like we saw a bunch of use cases, right? We already have console commands in core, so we can like if you see core scripts Drupal, we have certain console commands, so we can probably replace with like inbuilt console application and have a console command out of box in the module itself. Like that's also the possibility. I mean, currently we are discussing on the PR itself. If you go to the PR, there are a couple of approaches that we are discussing over there. So that's also another possibility that we can open up for, and even we can ship certain, like for example, let's say recipe related commands or anything that can go to the module itself, and we can ship it in core itself. All right, thank you.
Thank you.